The words that shattered the morning stillness of Providence Municipal Court were neither loud nor profane, yet they carried the weight of a generation's erosion. "Do I really have to be here? This is stupid." 13-year-old Ethan Romano stood before Judge Frank Caprio with the posture of someone who'd been inconvenienced rather than called to account. His hoodie hung oversized on narrow shoulders. His hands remained buried in his pockets. His mother sat 3 rows back, phone glowing in her lap, scrolling through a feed more urgent than her son's reckoning. The charges were simple enough: property damage, failure to stop, disorderly conduct, a bike collision with a parked car, followed by laughter and flight. But what happened next would transform a routine citation into something far more profound. Judge Caprio removed his reading glasses with the deliberate care of a man who'd seen this scene play out in countless variations. "This isn't punishment, young man," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who doesn't need volume to command attention. "It's participation in justice." The boy rolled his eyes. The judge leaned forward just slightly. "You're here because a choice was made. Not by me, not by the court, by you." Whatever. In that single word, in that dismissive syllable, hung the entire architecture of modern disrespect. Officer Denton, stationed near the side entrance, tightened his crossed arms. Several observers in the gallery exchanged glances. One older woman shook her head slowly. Then Caprio spoke the words that would redirect the morning's trajectory. "Disrespect doesn't start in court. It starts at home." His gaze flickered briefly toward the mother still absorbed in her screen. The silence that followed was the kind that makes people remember where they were standing. Subscribe if you still believe respect begins with accountability. Court Clerk Ms. Reyes announced the case with practiced efficiency, her voice converting human failure into legal language. Case number 2024 MC 1847. 3 counts. October 14th incident. Officer Denton filing. Count 1 detailed the scratch that became a gash, the handlebar collision that left paint peeling from a door panel. Count 2 documented the moment Ethan looked back at the damage, laughed, and pedaled away. Count 3 captured what happened when the officer arrived and the boy insisted it was no big deal. The mother interrupted before the reading finished. "Your Honor, I'm happy to pay for whatever damage he caused. Can we just settle this now? I have a meeting at 11. She reached for her purse, already calculating the transaction that would make this disappear. But Judge Caprio's response carried no warmth. "This court accepts remorse, not transactions." The checkbook stayed closed. "Money fixes windows," the judge continued, "not character." Ethan shifted his weight, suddenly aware that this wouldn't be the quick exit his mother had promised in the car that morning. When asked to explain what happened, Ethan delivered his defense with the casual dismissiveness of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "It was just a scratch, barely even touched it, and the guy probably has insurance anyway." Judge Caprio opened a manila folder. Inside were photos printed on standard copy paper, edges still crisp. He held up the first image, a close-up of the damaged vehicle, the scratch extending nearly 2 feet along the driver's side door. "Just a scratch," the judge repeated, letting the words hang. He picked up the second photo. This one came from Officer Denton's body camera. Time stamped 3:47 p.m. The image caught Ethan mid-laugh, looking back over his shoulder, one hand raised in what might have been a wave or a dismissive gesture. "When you laugh after causing harm," Caprio said, setting the photo down where Ethan could see it clearly, "you tell the world what you value." The boy's face flushed. For the first time that morning, his eyes dropped to the floor. Behind him, his mother spoke up. "He's 13. Kids make mistakes. This is being blown completely out of proportion." The judge's response was measured. "You're right, Mrs. Romano. Kids do make mistakes. That's precisely why they need to learn what happens when they do." He picked up a third document, the transcript of a voice recording. Responsibility is learned, he said quietly, when apology costs effort, not cash. Officer James Denton took the witness position with the economy of movement that comes from testifying hundreds of times. He was 34, decorated twice for community service, and known in Providence as someone who gave second chances until they were exhausted. He recounted the October 14th incident with clinical precision. A 911 call at 3:43 p.m. Witness report of a juvenile fleeing a collision scene on Benefit Street. Dashcam footage capturing the bike's path, the moment of impact, the backward glance and laughter. Arrival at 3:51 p.m. to find the vehicle owner photographing the damage. Did you locate the defendant that day? Caprio asked. Affirmative, Your Honor. Approximately 1 hour later, still riding in the area. When I approached, he initially denied being near Benefit Street. Did his story change? After I mentioned the dashcam footage, yes. He admitted to the collision but maintained it was accidental and not a big deal. The judge nodded. Did you obtain any additional evidence at that time? Denton pulled out his phone, connected it to the courtroom's audio system. With permission, I recorded our conversation after informing him he was being documented. The speaker crackled to life. Traffic sounds. Then Ethan's voice, younger sounding than it was now but carrying the same dismissive edge. Whatever, he's rich. He'll fix it. It's not like I broke his whole car. The recording clicked off. Judge Caprio let the silence expand for 5 full seconds. That sentence, he finally said, is the mirror of our times. The timestamp on the dashcam footage read 3:47 p.m. The timestamp on the audio recording read 4:52 p.m. Between those 65 minutes lay a complete portrait of a young man who'd learned that actions didn't necessarily lead to consequences, that education was about to be corrected. Harold Green didn't appear in person. At 72, with a surgically repaired hip and a daily schedule built around physical therapy, the trip to court would have been more burden than the case warranted. Instead, he appeared by phone, his voice transmitted through the courtroom speakers with the slight delay of a conference line. Mr. Green, Judge Caprio began, can you describe the condition of your vehicle after the incident? The old man's voice was steady, measured. The damage was along the driver's side door, deep enough to require repainting the entire panel. My insurance adjuster estimated $1,200. And has the defendant or his family contacted you directly? No, Your Honor. No one reached out. Caprio made a note. What would you like to see come from this hearing? There was a pause. Not hesitation. Consideration. Your Honor, I'm not here for the money. I can afford the deductible. What troubles me is how easily he laughed. I watched from my window. He looked back, saw what he'd done, smiled, and rode off like it was a game. The judge leaned closer to his microphone. What do you hope happens today? I hope he learns something I suspect no one has taught him yet, that other people matter, that actions have weight, that sorry isn't just a word you say to make adults leave you alone. Another pause, longer this time. When Harold Green spoke again, his voice carried something harder than anger. Disappointment. I don't care about the repair, Your Honor. I care that a 13-year-old boy can damage someone's property and feel nothing, because a lesson ignored at 13 becomes a headline at 20. The line clicked to hold mode. The courtroom remained silent. Several people in the gallery nodded slowly. If you believe respect must be taught early, subscribe. Judge Caprio set down his pen and looked directly at Ethan. Young man, I want you to explain something to me. What does the word sorry mean to you? Ethan blinked. What? Sorry. The word you haven't said once this morning. What does it mean? The boy's mouth opened, closed, opened again. It means, like, when you feel bad about something? Do you feel bad? A shrug. I guess. That's not an answer. Ethan's face reddened. He looked to his mother, who was watching now, phone finally face down on the bench beside her. No help came from that direction. I don't know, Ethan finally admitted. I don't know what you want me to say. It was the first honest thing he'd said all morning. Caprio nodded slowly. That's the first true statement you've made in this courtroom. Thank you for that. He turned to Officer Denton. Do you still have that community service footage we reviewed last month? The one from the high school restoration project? I do, Your Honor. Can you cue it up, please? The courtroom screen flickered to life. The video showed a group of teenagers in matching t-shirts repainting walls at Central High School. Vandalism removal. Graffiti transformed back into clean brick. The footage was silent but powerful. Young people on ladders, brushes moving in steady rhythm, transformed by the simple act of repairing what others had broken. Caprio let it run for 30 seconds before having it paused. Discipline isn't punishment, he said, still watching the frozen image. It's education in motion. The judge's next instruction was simple and devastating in its simplicity. Ethan, I want you to do two things. First, look at your mother. The boy turned. His mother met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Now look at that screen. At those young people fixing what someone else broke. Ethan looked. Here's my question. Who do you think deserves an apology first? Your mother, for having to bring you here? Or Mr. Green, whose car you damaged? The boy's mouth opened. No words came. 5 seconds passed. 7, 10. At 12 seconds, someone in the gallery coughed softly. Ethan's hands came out of his pockets. His shoulders straightened slightly, not from defiance, but from the weight of actually having to think about an answer that mattered. 15 seconds. Both, he finally whispered. Judge Caprio nodded. That's correct. And do you know why you couldn't answer immediately? Ethan shook his head. Because no one has ever asked you to think about it before. Those 12 seconds of silence taught more than any lecture could have. They created space for something other than defensiveness and dismissal. They allowed accountability to take root in soil that had never been tilled. Judge Caprio opened the leather-bound ledger that served as both record and ritual. His handwriting was precise, each letter formed with the care of someone who understood that words on paper could change lives. Ethan Michael Romano, this court finds you responsible for all 3 charges as filed: property damage, failure to identify, and disorderly conduct. Mrs. Romano tensed. Ethan's face drained of color. However, the judge continued, this court also recognizes that you are 13 years old, and 13-year-olds are not finished becoming who they will be. So here's what's going to happen. He read from the ledger as he wrote. First, you are fined $150. That fine is suspended pending successful completion of the following requirements. Second, you will complete 50 hours of community service under the supervision of Officer Denton. Those hours will be spent on property restoration projects, similar to what you just saw on that screen. Third, you will write a 500-word reflection essay titled, What Respect Means to Me. That essay will be submitted to this court within 30 days. Fourth, you will personally visit Mr. Harold Green at a time convenient to him and apologize face-to-face. Not over the phone, not in a letter, in person. And you will look him in the eye when you do it. Fifth, you will return to this courtroom in 90 days for a progress hearing. At that hearing, we will determine whether you've learned what you came here to learn. He set down his pen. Respect cannot be demanded, Ethan. It can only be demonstrated. You're going to spend the next 3 months demonstrating it. The ledger showed the tasks in clean columns. 50 hours, due dates marked in 2-week increments. The essay deadline. The green visit notation. The follow-up hearing scheduled for January 15th at 9 o'clock a.m. Should every young offender serve time teaching others what they learned? Tell us below. The first Saturday of community service, Ethan arrived 20 minutes late wearing the same hoodie from court. Officer Denton handed him a paint roller without comment and pointed at a traffic control box covered in spray-painted profanity. "Make it white again," Denton said. "2 coats minimum." Ethan worked in silence, his strokes uneven and grudging. By noon, his arms ached. By 2 o'clock, he'd stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes. By 4, when Denton inspected the work and said, "Better, come back next Saturday," something in the boy's expression had shifted slightly. The second week it rained. Ethan showed up anyway. Denton noticed but said nothing. Week 3 involved cleaning graffiti from a pedestrian underpass. A woman walking by stopped to thank them. Ethan mumbled something that might have been, "You're welcome." It was progress. His teacher, Mrs. Chen, noticed the change first. "He stopped talking back," she wrote in an email to the court. "It's subtle, but it's there. He raises his hand now instead of shouting out. Small thing, maybe, but it's different." The essay came in on day 28, 2 days early. 517 words. No excuses, no defensive posturing. Just an honest attempt to define something he'd never had to think about before. The visit to Harold Green happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Ethan knocked on the door of the small house on Benefit Street with Officer Denton waiting in the car. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. When Ethan emerged, his eyes were red. Green sent a follow-up email to Judge Caprio that evening. He cried, not dramatically, just quiet tears while he apologized. He said he'd never thought about how it would feel to have something you worked for damaged by someone who didn't care. Then he asked if there was anything else he could do to make it right. I told him he just did it. He smiled differently than he did in that body cam photo, like maybe he'd figured something out. Change begins when silence replaces sarcasm. Ethan Romano was discovering that truth one weekend at a time. January 15th arrived cold and bright. The same courtroom, the same bench, the same judge. But when Ethan Romano entered at 8:55 a.m., he was different. He walked straighter. His hands hung at his sides instead of hiding in pockets. He wore a button-down shirt. His mother sat in the same row as before, but this time her phone stayed in her purse. Officer Denton submitted his report first. All 50 hours completed. No missed sessions. Multiple commendations from site supervisors. Mr. Romano showed increasing initiative as the weeks progressed. Judge Caprio nodded. "And the essay?" "Submitted on time. Would you like me to read it, Your Honor?" "I'd like Mr. Romano to read it himself." Ethan walked to the podium, paper trembling slightly in his hands. He cleared his throat. What Respect Means to Me by Ethan Romano. I used to think respect meant doing what you're told, following rules because you'll get in trouble if you don't. But that's not respect. That's just fear. I learned that respect is what you do when no one can make you. It's the choice you make when no one's watching. When I damaged Mr. Green's car, I wasn't afraid of getting caught. I just didn't think it mattered. I didn't think he mattered. That was wrong. Respect means understanding that other people's things, their time, their feelings, they all matter as much as yours. Maybe more, sometimes. It means when you mess up, you don't make excuses, you don't blame, you don't run away, you face it, you apologize, you fix it if you can. I spent 50 hours repainting things other people broke. Every single time I picked up a brush, I thought about how someone had to fix what I broke, how Mr. Green had to deal with my mistake, how Officer Denton had to spend his time teaching me something I should have already known. I don't expect anyone to forgive me just because I wrote this or painted some walls, but I'm different now. Not perfect, just different. More aware, more careful, more respectful. That's what respect means to me now. It's not something you say. It's something you become. The paper lowered. The courtroom was perfectly still. Judge Caprio removed his glasses. "You came into this court defending yourself," he said quietly. "You leave it understanding yourself. That's the only education that matters." He signed the completion order. The fine was formally remitted. The case was closed. The gallery applauded, something that rarely happened in municipal court. If you believe every mistake can become a lesson, subscribe. 3 months after the hearing, Providence City Schools launched Youth Responsibility Week. The curriculum drew directly from Ethan Romano's case, not as punishment, but as example. What happens when accountability meets opportunity? What changes when someone decides to change? Local high schools played Ethan's recorded PSA, filmed during his final weeks of community service. In it, he spoke directly to the camera. "I thought respect was something adults demanded from kids. I was wrong. Respect is what you give to everyone, including yourself. It's the only thing that makes you worth respecting back." The video went viral in local networks. Youth organizations requested permission to use it in programming. The municipal court received letters from 3 other districts asking about implementing similar restorative justice protocols for juvenile offenses. Most remarkably, accident reports involving minors dropped 17% in Providence over the following year. Correlation isn't causation, but sometimes culture shifts one case at a time. Harold Green framed Ethan's apology letter. It hangs in his living room next to a photo of his own father, a man who'd taught him that mistakes are inevitable but learning from them is optional. Mrs. Romano started attending her son's parent-teacher conferences. A small thing, an important thing. And Ethan? He finished 8th grade with improved marks and no disciplinary incidents. He volunteered for 2 additional weeks of community service, unprompted, unassigned. When asked why, he said simply, "Because I wanted to." Judge Frank Caprio retired 2 years later. At his farewell ceremony, he was asked about the cases that stayed with him. He mentioned several, then paused. "The ones that matter most," he said, "are the ones where someone walks in broken and leaves becoming whole, where punishment transforms into purpose, where a young person discovers that respect isn't something you're forced to give. It's the only wealth that grows when you give it away. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting."